It is that time once again to review a new album in 2013. Today I'm reviewing the new album from Amon Amarth entitled Deceiver of the Gods. One quick thing I do want to mention before I actually get into this review of this album is that I'm not going to try and pronounce the band members of this band that played on this album. I feel like that if I try to pronounce their names, I'm going to screw it up or mispronounce something, and I really just don't want to go down that route because it's disrespectful in my opinion, and I just don't want to try and do that because it's not going to end well. So I'm announcing it ahead of time. I'm not going to try to pronounce their name. I'm going to refer to them as what they did on the album and what they do in the band. So if you don't respect that and you don't like that, then click away. So I'm just letting you guys know right now that's how it's going to be because I don't want to disrespect anybody. So let's talk about this ninth studio album from Amon Amarth. This band has always been consistent with their releasing of melodic death metal albums, their Viking metal, the way that they're very into that Viking vibe. It's always been interesting to me. They're one of the only few bands really that I can listen to that writes about this type of material because in my personal opinion I'm not really into the Viking metal per se, but this band has always been able to give a nice touch to it, and I don't know, I just been able to grasp onto their music more than other bands that do the same thing that they do. On this album, it feels like a fresh new look from the band. Of course, on this album you will get a lot of melodic guitar work, a lot of aggressive songwriting, a lot of aggressive tracks, and overall the feeling of you're back in the Viking era and just very much all about this mythological stuff. And so that's already known. Now, on this album, do they do anything really different than on their past releases? Not really. You get the same type of guitar melodies, a lot of guitar harmony riffs, a lot of crazy melodic solos to crazy solos, aggressive songs, pulled back heavy tracks, and overall just a solid album from Amon Amarth. Now, I'm not saying that this is bad material. It's not. It's actually pretty good material. But I do believe that this is not their best work, but it sure is a nice touch and a nice album to put into their discography because this band is showing that they are still able to put out pretty good melodic death metal albums with that Viking vibe throughout the whole entire album. This album really caught me by surprise with some of the tracks like Warriors of the North, which ends the album, which is over 8 minutes long, and this song kind of sums up the album because it is the closer, of course, but it kind of sums up what you just listened to from the previous 9 tracks. It really had the heaviness effects, some fast riffs in it, some really, really cool harmonizing guitar bits that was really cool to listen to, a lot of melodic type stuff to going into that track as well, and overall just 8 minutes of summing up of what you've heard from the previous 9 tracks, like I said. So it was a good way to end the album, kind of refreshing you on what exactly you heard throughout the whole entire album to get to that point. Now, I think that the single that they released, Deceiver of the Gods, was an amazing opener on this album. It opens the album with this really cool harmonizing guitar riff, and it was just really cool to listen to. It was kind of pulled back in the mix, and then it hits you with this aggressive riff, and the song just chugs on forward, and you just go for the ride of the song Deceiver of the Gods, and it's a very aggressive track, and it kind of sets you up for what to expect on the album because it does have that aggressive side, but it also has that melodic guitar side that we've come to know from Amon Amarth with their really amazing and their really just musicianship into writing these really good guitar bits that are harmonizing, melodic, and just aggressive. You get all that in the first track, just getting you ready. I think that this album provides Amon Amarth fans with the sense of that this band is showing that they are not running out of ideas. This album does have some unique stuff to it, some really unique guitar bits. The musicianship, is very powerful on this album. There was a lot of different styles of riffing. The drum work was phenomenal in my opinion. The vocal work was just aggressive and what you'd expect from Amon Amarth. So this album should show to fans of the band and people that may not know the band that much and maybe have heard a couple songs and probably trying to get into the band, that this band is still continuing to put out some really good material, and they're still able to come up with some really interesting songs to listen to, like the song We Shall Destroy, Coming to the Tide, and Shapeshifter, which I thought was a aggressive track. Father of the Wolf was a really good track too. I like the guitar bits that went into that as well. It's just that this album is just consistent. It's what you'd expect from Amon Amarth. It's not a bad thing, but it's also a thing of where maybe they could try some more stuff. But of course, I think in as far as they've been in with their career with 9 albums, this being the 9th one, I think if they tried to do something way too different, it might not be taken as well as from fans, or maybe it could. Who knows? But on this album, you're getting what you'd expect from Amon Amarth, which is a melodic death metal album with the Viking vibe throughout the whole entire bit of it, and just overall some really good quality music. Let's go to the sound of the band. Let's go to the vocals. The vocals are what you'd expect. Loud, aggressive, and in your face. The lyrical content, the same type of thing. The Viking vibe, all about that mythological stuff in it. And it's what you'd expect from the band. And I just enjoy just the different types of stuff that's going on about lyrically through this album, because it's always been interesting to me to hear about these mythological tales and all that stuff, especially the lyrics on the song Warriors of the North, which is about, of course, the Warriors of the North. It was really interesting to hear that. And the song Blood Eagle, that was pretty interesting as well. And Deceiver of the Gods, those are some good lyrical lines throughout that song as well. The guitars is what I have to praise, because when I think of Amon Amarth, I think of the guitars. The guitar riffs, what the guitars do on this album. The musicianship on this album is phenomenal, with the guitars, the bass, and the drums. But to the guitars, the tone is aggressive. The riffs are aggressive and heavy and pulled back and just melodic, peaceful. There's so many words to express because there's a lot of different styles of riffing through this album. But what I loved is that the harmonizing guitar bits, the melodic guitar solos, or just the harmonizing riffs that just go along with each other perfectly, always catches my attention, because they're always able to come up with, throughout each of their albums, these really interesting guitar bits that really stand out harmonizing wise, that kind of remind me of Iron Maiden with their really interesting harmonizing riffs and stuff that they throw into their songs. Amon Amarth do that in a heavier sense, but it kind of reminds me of that, because they're coming up with really unique types of that. It's not like a simple alternate picking and just playing this one note and then they play a harmonizing note. Amon Amarth knows how to able to come up with these really interesting moving around the frets and able to come up with a really interesting sound, like the opener of Deceiver of the Gods and just other tracks like that. It's throughout the whole entire album, and the musicianship I have to give praise, because the guitars are just phenomenal like they've been on past releases, so great praise to the guitars. The bass is turned up on this album, of course, what you'd expect. The bass player is doing some really interesting stuff on this album, and I just enjoyed what he did on this album. He made those aggressive riffs heavier with that bass being plugged right under it and getting heavier and making those riffs more aggressive, so give props to the bass player as well, because some of these songs do get really fast and really crazy, and you got to keep up. Same thing with the drummer. High praise to the drums. The drum sound is heavy. It's what you expect from Amon Amarth. The drumming is really good. The double bass is massive. I love the drum fills that go on this album. I just love how the drumming wasn't consistent like the music is. Now, not saying that's bad. The guitars are not that consistent, but the drumming, if it could have been consistent, it could have been the same 4-4, 8-8 pattern, just the same pattern over and over each time. There's a new a difference in the song. If the riff a new riff comes in, the drums could have just did something so simplistic, but it doesn't happen. There's some really unique drum patterns, some really awesome drum fills. The double bass, like I said, is massive. The drumming is just really, really good on this album, and I have to give praise to the drummer for able to come up with these really cool drum patterns to go along with these really interesting guitar bits. So the drumming is not consistent. It's different on each track, and you have to keep guessing, what is he going to do next? What's going to happen here? And overall, this album and the sound of the band is great. The band is showing that they are not slowing down. They still have these really cool ideas, and musically they are continuing to put out really good melodic death metal albums. Is it melodic? Yeah. I make sure I said that right. So overall, I think Deceiver of the Gods is probably an 8.5 out of 10. I think that this album really does. It needs to be listened to from fans who are fans of melodic death metal that doesn't know this band, because Amon Amarth is continuing once again to put out some amazing material with some really good songwriting, some really interesting guitar bits, some really interesting musicianship, and overall just a great album that should be heard by fans of this band and people that don't know about this band. Go check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I sure wasn't. And That's all I really have to say. That's my review, guys. Amon Amarth, Deceiver of the Gods, 8.5 out of 10. Hope you guys like this album. If you do, if you've already heard it, what's your favorite track? Comment down below and let me know. Thank you guys for watching. Like the video if you like the video. And if you like me and you want to see more, click my name or click up there or whatever to see more of my content. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.